All right, so there is page 1 of your notes. You can see there's the first 3 examples. Notice when you have a closed dot, notice when you have an open circle. When it's just less or just greater, you're going to have an open dot because it doesn't include it. And when it's equals, then you're going to have your closed dot. All right, next page. Solve inequalities just like equations. Yeah. Newton. I may have to have you go outside to talk about the notes. I can't have you just turn around talking while I'm doing my notes. I could just, I don't know why you're telling me not working. You haven't written down the notes yet. All of them. So you've got the word inequalities in that box and the word equations in that box. You're gonna waste your whole summer. You're gonna waste all of getting up early just to come here and come down. Not working. All right, we're gonna solve them just like equations. So you do your 2 steps, get the x by itself, and then you would graph it. So in this case, you're going to subtract 3 on both sides. You're going to get x is greater than 1. You make an open dot at 1. It's greater than, so we're not going to include it. It's just greater, and it's going to go to the right. So all of these numbers would be right answers. That means you could plug in a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5 into this x right here, and it would be a right answer. If you plugged in any of these numbers over here into that x, it's the wrong answer. It would not be greater, it would be less. So the shaded area is just a picture of where the right answers are. This is where all your right answers are, this is where all your wrong answers are. Now when you have fractions, we want to find a common denominator. Something that 3 and 4 could go into that we could cross it out. What can 3 and 4 go into so that we could reduce those fractions? 12, because 3 times 4 is 12. So multiply everything by 12, all three terms. So you'll get 12x. The 3 goes into 12 4 times, so you're going to get plus 4. Greater than or equal to, 4 goes into 12 3 times, so 3 times 3 is 9. When you subtract 4 on both sides, you get 12x equals 5, or it's actually greater than or equal to 5, and divide by 12. So x is greater than or equal to 5/12. Now you don't have to find exactly where 5/12 goes, you just kind of have to know about where 5/12 goes. Where do you think 5/12, what is that close to? For me, it's close to 6/12. 5/12, one more up would be 6/12. So what does 6/12 reduce to? 6 over 12 would reduce to 1/2. So it's going to be pretty close to 1/2. Not exactly, a little less than a half. So I'm going to make a closed dot at a point a little less than a half. Come down here and put 5/12. Just so you can show on your number line approximately where it would go and exactly what you want it to be. And I made it a closed dot because it was equal. And since the x is in front, this arrow is going to show me it's going to the right. So I'm going to shade all these to the right. Number 3 down here, you're going to just do your couple of steps to solve. You're going to do your combining like terms. 3y minus 2y is just 1y. Plus 1 is less than negative 3. Subtract 1 on both sides. You get y is less than negative 4. So you're going to find where negative 4. Now negative 4 you're going to have to add to your graph. Less than means it's an open circle. And this way. Not a lot of room to shade there, but you'll shade that arrow and go on to the left. That was page 1 and 2 at the top of your notes. Now the next little group down here, the third little box here, is just solving ones. You don't have to graph. So they just want you to get used to solving only. So the first one, you would subtract your 3 on both sides, and it's quickly done. It's x is less than 2. That means all numbers, not less than, greater than, all numbers greater than 2 would be a right answer. All numbers less than 2 would be a wrong answer. 2 is actually a wrong answer. 2 is not greater than 2. So that was A. For B, you're going to add 5 on both sides. So x is less than or equal to 13. All numbers that are less than or equal to 13 would be a right answer. Anything greater than 13 is a wrong answer. So that was B. C, you're just going to subtract 1 on both sides. So x is less than 2. Like we just had one close to that in the letter A. D and E is where we got to do a little bit more work. How do we get D to not have a fraction? Maybe get rid of that fraction. What would you multiply everything by to get rid of that fraction? 8. Yeah, we want to get rid of the 8s on the bottom, so multiply everything by 8. So 8y, these 8s will cancel out, you'll get plus 1. These 8s you'll get, and you'll get negative 3. So subtract 1 on both sides to get rid of the 1. 8y is less than negative 4. Divide by 8. And y is less than negative 1/2. So 4 8s, I reduced that because I divided these both by 4. 4 divided by 4 was 1. 8 divided by 4 was 2. It stayed as a negative 1/2 is what you'd get, less than negative 1/2. So anything less than negative 1/2 is a right answer. Anything greater than would be a wrong answer. Bless you. 5y minus 4y is just 1y. You could put 1y or you could just put y. And then plus 2, bring that down, is less than or equal to negative 1. Subtract your 2. Y is less than or equal to negative 3. When would you switch the inequality sign from a less than to a greater than? Not when you're subtracting 2, but if you were dividing a negative on both sides, or if you were multiplying a negative on both sides, you would need to switch the inequality sign. And that may happen on some of the ones that you have to do. So your next, I wouldn't do it in this part right here because you're going to have to draw some graphs, but on a separate sheet of paper, you're going to do 1 through 22 on page 176. All right, moving on to the second page. This one has the multiplying or dividing ones. So let's start with the first one here. We're going to divide by 4 on both sides. X is less than 7. And we would want to graph that as well because they want a picture of the right answer. So x is less than 7. That's not going to be enough room on our graph, huh? So let's see. Why don't we get rid of these numbers? And we'll say that we'll go by 3, 6, 9. So 7 is going to be right after the 6 right here. And we want an open circle at 7, and we want to shade everything to the left. So we'll call this -3, -6, -9. We'll say that those were 3s. Each of those lines were 3s instead of 1s. That way we can fit our 7 in there. Example 2, you want to get y by itself. You're going to divide by -2, and this is when I told you the less than will become a greater than. So you'll actually get y is greater than negative 9. Greater than negative 9. And these little boxes right here are, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must reverse the inequality sign. If you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to reverse the sign. Now this negative 9 is, again, not going to fit, so let's make this 3, 6, 9, negative 3, negative 6, negative 9. And we want an open circle, and we want greater, so it's going to be all of this side of the graph. All your right answers are on that side of the negative 9. Negative 9 itself is a wrong answer. It's open. And everything to this side of negative 9 is also a wrong answer. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, you must reverse the inequality sign. The last one, we have a fraction of 6, so let's multiply by 6. So we get negative 18x is greater than or equal to, the 6's cancel out, you get a 5. You divide by negative 18. Dividing by a negative on both sides means it's not going to be greater than anymore, it's going to be less than. So switch this to less than or equal to. And you're going to get negative 5/18. Where is that going to be? Between what two numbers would 5/18 be? Negative 5/18. Would it be between these two, these two, these two, these two, these two? Where would negative 5/18 fall? Well, we know it's not on the right because it's not positive. It's negative. Is it more than negative, or is it to the left of negative 1? It's actually going to be a fraction that's a decimal. So it's going to have to be between 0 and negative 1. And it's a lot closer to 0 than it is to, actually it's still a closed off. And you could put negative 5/18. This right here would be negative 18/18. Because that would be negative 1. Negative 2 would be negative 36/18. So negative 5/18 is not even quite to negative 1. It's actually just past the 0. And we want to shade greater than, so we're going to shade this side. So that would be example 3, and then there's just a few left to do on the next page that are just solving ones. Good? Yep. All right. Solving these. Most of these they're multiplying, so you want to divide. So if they're multiplying by 8, you want to divide by 8, and you're going to get x is less than 8. 64 divided by 8 is 8. If they're multiplying by negative 4, you divide by negative 4. Only thing is, you got to change that to less than or equal to, and you get negative 6. A positive and a negative, when you divide them, it's always going to give you a negative. So negative 6, it doesn't matter that 24 is bigger. All that matters is that those signs are different when you divide. Divide by 5 on both sides. You get y is less than negative 12. This time the sign does not change. I did not divide both sides by the negative number. I divided both sides by a positive. 60 was already negative, so they had to be different. They had to be a negative 12. D is like a -1 in front, so you got to divide by -1. So T is now going to be greater than 5. So any number greater than 5 would actually work in there. You had to switch those signs. You divided both sides by the negative number, so you had to switch them. E is the same thing. You're going to divide by -1. So you're going to get y, and now you're going to switch this greater than to less than, and you'll get -1/2. Y is less than -1/2. When you divide both sides by the negative, you have to switch that or reverse that sign. And the last one, I'd get rid of the fraction first. Multiply both sides by 8. So you'll have -16x is less than or equal to 5, and then divide by -16. So x, you've got to switch the less than to greater than, and you're going to get -5/16, which is also between 0 and -1 on your graph. It would be closer to 0 than it would be to -1. It should be a pretty easy day to finish your work today, because that's an easy, those are a couple of easy sections, and I did not give you a worksheet today, so it should be an easy day to finish your 178 and 182. Make sure you graph, make sure you show all the work. There is work I need to see. If I don't see it, you don't get your credits. It'll just come back to you as I need work. You can distribute if you want to, but these are those numbers. You just have 21. All right, now look. X is less than 1. So what you would want to do is, I put the y in front. I put y is greater than x, because I'm switching this around. That's greater. Now the reason I put the y in front is because of my form. Y equals m x plus b. I know what my slope is, I know what my y-intercept is. When I draw a graph, I used to like go to 0 for the next. Now 0 is going to be my y-intercept. 1 over 1 is going to be my slope. Of 1 over x. Now my y-intercept. Actually, it would be a dot. It doesn't have greater than x. And then greater, so it's 5. Greater
remember